What up, it's Berend Bulang again from Bulang & Sons, and today it's time for another episode of Berend Talks Watches, and today's topic is the difference between two Rolex Submariner references. So for today I got these two beauties here lined up. But let's talk about the Submariner in general in the first place. The Submariner is maybe the most recognizable watch model ever made. If you would ask anyone to draw a watch, 99% chance that he would draw a Submariner. So in 1954 Rolex launched the Submariner to the world for the first time. And since then it has been worn by many professional divers like Comex divers, but also the military commandos. But after a while, also celebrities started to wearing this watch, and it created its own cult status, like for example the Porsche 911, which is also a timeless design and has been developed in evolution instead of revolution. And that's something that definitely reflects on the two references I have here at the table. Let's talk about the vintage reference first, which is the reference 5513, which is also the most collected reference by vintage Submariner collectors. And the other reference I have is the reference 14 or 16, which is a successor of the 5513. So today I won't talk too much about the history of these two references, but more talk about the style differences between them and the aesthetic differences between them. And I choose these two references because I think these are the two nicest references to buy your first Submariner. So the watches were really different to each other, and it has mostly to do because of the glass that Rolex uses on the dials. So let's talk about the 5513 first. Like all vintage Rolex models, Rolex fitted the 5513 with a plexi crystal. And specific on the Rolex Submariner, it's a super long plexi crystal. So if we have a look, the watch, the crystal, has a curve in it. And that's really special because I think it's aesthetically more beautiful, because when you turn the watch, every angle and every shape gets a different type of form. So the plots changes, there's more distortion on the dial, it's more exciting, but it also gives a more warmer feeling on the wrist. And that's why I love plexi crystals so much. Plexi is sexy. But when Rolex replaced the 5513 with the 14 or 16, they wanted to go deeper into the water and change the plexi crystal for a sapphire crystal. And the sapphire crystal is completely flat. So it's maybe a more clinical and raw look, but if you turn it on the wrist, the watch stays exactly the same. And that's maybe a pity, but also this is really great and just different. It feels more modern. And the second difference you will definitely notice by wearing on is the differences in dials. So the 5513 is a model which was made with many dial variations, but the specific one has a Maxi Mach 1 dial. And the Maxi dials have bigger hour plots, and the Maxi Mach 1 dial has the biggest hour plots of the lineup. And the Maxi Mach 1 dial is rarer because it was only made in the late 70s. So in combination with the Super Dome Plexi, this gives the watch a completely different vibe. The dial really pops out on your wrist and is really special. And that's something special about 5513s in general. So if we have a look at the 14 or 16, which doesn't fit with the Maxi dials anymore, the later successor does have Maxi dials again, but this one doesn't have it, but is fitted with white gold hour markers. Later 5513s also have this, but we only talk about the Maxi dial today. And this one also has a gloss dial, which has more reflection than the matte dial of the 5513. Another difference you will definitely notice on the dials is the variations of material that Rolex used to make the lume plots. For example, on the 5513, Rolex used over the years different mixtures to make the lume plots, for example zinc sulfide or tritium. And these materials have the chance of discoloring because of light impact or climate, to for example famous colors like pumpkin plots or vanilla plots. On this watch, the Mach 1, they're still quite white, which the Mach 1 is famous for. If you have a look at the 14 or 16, in the early days the watch was also fitted with tritium plots, but in 1998 Rolex changed it to Luminova, which is on this watch. And that's something you definitely need to keep in mind, because it means because of the discoloring, no 5513 is exactly alike. They all age different. And with 14 or 16 after 98, this won't happen again. I personally love discoloring and aging on the watches a lot because it gives the watch more character, charisma and a different vibe on the wrist. and that's something which I personally really love. Of course, the watches were fitted with different type of movements, but also different type of bracelets. The 5513 is fitted with a riveted bracelet, folded bracelet, or a solid oyster bracelet, and the 1416 only with a solid version. There's also differences in dials, because the 1416 is made with a 2-liner dial or a 4-liner dial, like for example on the 5512, and the 4-liner dial has more pressure on the wrist. So we have talked about the aesthetic differences, but what is it like actually to wear one, and what makes everyone unique? So the main difference you feel between them while wearing them is that the 5513 just feels way more vintage, and this has all to do with the plexi crystal, or for example this coloring that the watches will get, but also the fact that these watches, for example, already have 40 or 50 years history and story behind them. And that's something you feel on the wrist, is that they carry a story with them. And for example, the 14 or 16 just feels more modern, more robust, more sporty, but has a completely different feeling to it. And this may be a watch that will fit a younger person or someone with a more sporty lifestyle better. And they are really great for what they are, and I really can't choose between them because I like them for what they are, and they're just different. A Rolex Submariner is just all the watch you will ever need, and definitely a watch that every watch lover should have owned once in their life. It's just such an iconic piece and such a timeless design you can never really go wrong with. The last thing you definitely need to think about is the price point of these watches. For example, a nice 40 or 60 will cost you under 10,000 euros, but for a nice 5513 you need to pay more than 12,500 euros. For example, like this nice MK1 dial, you need to pay more than 60,000 euros. So that's something you definitely need to keep in mind. So I hope you're already interested in buying a Rolex Submariner, and if you are, make sure you contact us, because our watch experts always are on the hunt for the nicest and best examples, and we always have nice ones in the lineup. We will make sure we find the right one for you, because we only sell Submariners that we are proud to own ourselves as lovers of this model and collectors. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Berend Talks Watches. Stay tuned, other episodes are coming up, and keep your watch love and hunting on.